Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. As we move forward in our service, I want to welcome you and make sure you know just how welcome you are, and whoever you are welcome in this space. Some of you may have heard there was an election this past week. I hate presidential election season, which begins next week, apparently, for the next election cycle. I hate it because in our country, and especially in the last 20 years, it has become an increasingly divisive time. It doesn't bring us together. It sends us to our corners, and the fight just rages and rages, and it doesn't help us. 4 years ago, to 8 years ago, we entered a season that was a very, very difficult season in our country. And I'm not here to talk about politics, but I do want to say a couple of things that I think are important. One is, as I mentioned in an email that I kicked out this week, the day after the election, we don't have a crystal ball. We have no idea to the specificity of things that are going to happen on the global scale, with wars around the world, with global trade, with NATO. We have no idea what's really going to happen in terms of immigration reform or not here in our country, which has been an ongoing political tool for election purposes. We don't know what's going to happen with our own economy. We don't know so many things that are going to happen. And so we can't really speak to those things. And we need to breathe deep and realize we don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen, good or bad. But there is one thing that I think we can count on, because history sometimes can be a predictor of what is to come. One of the things that I consistently called out, and probably stepped over a line now and again out of my passion and frustration, is that the rhetoric that comes from our political leaders matters. There's a reality in quantum physics that says that observation is not benign. It's a profound way to think that says that even our observation, our simply looking at a thing in a laboratory, affects the thing. I want to tell you that the language that we use, the rhetoric that we use when we talk about reality and other people, that is not benign. There's a ridiculous adage that we have taught our children over the years. You probably remember it. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but... All right, somebody raise your BS meter hand, because that is one of those terrible lies that we tell children. It's a terrible lie that the words that we use have no impact on the people that we point them towards. And from 2016 to 2020, when I couldn't help myself, I complained and called out the rhetoric that was coming from our top office. I don't think that part's going to change. I think the rhetoric is going to stay the same. And I'm going to continue to call out the rhetoric. I don't want to get into a character assassination kind of thing, but I can call out behavior. And I know it's going to happen because it already has throughout the campaign. The othering, the saying that immigrants as a whole, using a wide brush, are murderers, rapists, thugs. Which means that the people who hear those words when they're interacting and they don't know the data and don't take the time to actually research the data, they're just going to naturally assume that anytime we see somebody who is an immigrant must be a murderer, rapist, or thug. But I know immigrants, and they're not. And while there may be some that are, we've got plenty of homegrown folks that were right along the same stripe that would also qualify. I want to say that words matter, because just a day or two after the election, and you've probably read the headline, depending what news source you read or watch, the FBI is already investigating why were so many tweets and text messages sent out to particularly Black Americans saying, go back to a plantation to start picking cotton. That happens because rhetoric matters. The words we speak matters. I think it was around 2018 At that time, I was a member of the Child Abuse Prevention Council here in Napa County. And we would look at all things related to the well-being of children here in Napa. And I remember going over an impact report and looking at the trends in Napa County. And I stopped the meeting because I couldn't believe the data that I was looking at. Because there was this clear connection starting in 2016 that domestic violence and acts toward children that were violent began to skyrocket in 2016. Our words matter. When we use words of othering and belittling and dehumanizing, it encourages those who already think those things to say them out loud even louder, and assuming that it must be okay to take matters into their own hands. That behavior of language that belittles, I am certain we can expect that again and again and again. And I want to tell you that I will do my very best not to be political, not to choose a party either way, but I will call out that behavior because that is antithetical to the very Spirit of God who gives us shalom. And to that end, I want to welcome you. And I want to say this wordy version of our welcome statement that we've used over time, because I think especially right now, it matters. It matters what we say. It matters what we say, not just what he says. It matters what we say, because this community needs to know that there is a representation of Christianity that believes this, that all people are welcome. And I say this not just for you, but I say this because we are a wider audience than just who shows up here. We have people tuning in from all across the nation. And you know why they tune in to us? They tune in to us because there aren't that many voices of Christianity right now that are saying stuff like this, that you all matter. Welcome to Crosswalk. We embrace Jesus' message that God loves everyone and affirm that all persons are of sacred worth. We proudly celebrate diversity as we work to live our vision of radical hospitality. We welcome people of every age, race, and gender identity, diverse nationalities, ethnicities, and sexual orientations, any family structure, economic reality, physical and mental ability, education, and faith history. While there are differences among us, we can love alike, though we may not think alike. I want to remind you of some things today. I want to thank you for your generosity, because Crosswalk cannot be Crosswalk apart from you and your generosity. And it matters. It matters that we continue to be a voice in this community. So if you or someone you know has had any kind of mental health issue, Crosswalk matters, because we believe such things exist and we stand behind treatment for such things. And that is not true across the board of Christianity. But here at Crosswalk, we support mental health. We support medications that help people in their pursuit of mental health. We believe that all people are created equal regardless of their skin tone. We believe that all people are created equal regardless of their sexual orientation. Which brings me to this point. When we have our feast coming up this Saturday, because we just raised money for Food Pantry and Project Hope, and they're sitting pretty good right now, we're trying to think, all right, well, what makes sense? And so I talked about it with the board, and what makes sense right now, especially now, is that we support those organizations that are coming alongside those who are most vulnerable. And in our culture right now, there is no more vulnerable group. I think this is a tough call, but one of the most vulnerable. Let me say it that way, because issues of race, legal status in terms of your immigration, all that, they're so pronounced. But one that we know is critically important at this time has to do with supporting our LGBTQ neighbors. There is there is a reason why the suicide rate among LGBTQ youth is so much higher than kids who are not. So we are wanting to support a local organization that is coming alongside youth who are trying to figure so much out, including this, and having to deal with who knows how much hate from how many different corners of their life. And so we're going to be kicking a check to LGBTQ Connection, and their leader is going to be with us this Saturday night. We're going to kick a check to Evergreen Association, which is part of our American Baptist family. It's the one of the very few regions in our larger network that would actually welcome us. When we were told by our former region, because of our support of LGBTQ equality and equity, we were told by our former region, you better leave or we're going to kick you out. And Evergreen was that region that welcomed us with open arms. And we want to support that voice. And we want to kick a check to Association of Welcoming and Affirming Baptists. You'll get to hear from their executive director next week. He works nationally with churches like ours to help find resources and support to navigate their way through the things that we already have. Because this is a growing, pronounced issue, not just in our nation, but globally. And finally, even if it's just $5 or $10 as a show of solidarity, Tom Ord's organization, the Center for Open and Relational Theology, is a place also where like-minded people come, and the majority of people who find a home in that theological ethos, which we're built on, are of a similar mind when it comes to LGBTQ inclusion. What you may not have heard, even though we've mentioned it here and there, is Tom Ord himself has gone through the ringer. He was put on trial for his position of equality and equity and affirmation of the LGBTQ neighbors that we have and hold dear. He was stripped of his ordination, of which he was a lifetime member, and he was stripped of his church membership, and along with that, told that you can never teach a class in a Nazarene church going forward. One of their most celebrated theologians told, you can never teach a class in a Nazarene institution or church again. So Tom is a regular attender at his Nazarene church in Nampa, Idaho. And you know what class he teaches most regularly? Nursery. Rocking babies, sitting on a floor, playing with toddlers. No longer allowed. We want to stand with Tom and say, and by the way, when he knew the trial was coming for the last couple of years, we'd have conversations and he'd say, what's it like? What's it like going through this? And I would tell him about the pain of losing relationships with people who said that they were with you, and then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, no longer know your name and no longer care. But also the new opportunities, the ways to use your voice and platform for the greater good. We want to show Tom that he's not alone, even if it's $5 or $10, just to say, your friend Crosswalk is with you. I've spoken too long. I didn't want to make this anything more than just a statement to say, because of what's happened and because of the rhetoric that we know is going to be in our future, we wanted to say with our rhetoric, all are welcome. And we're going to get behind that with everything that we have. Sound good? All right. I invite Shannon Pruch to please get up here and get me off the stage. Save us. Why don't you stand up? This is an awesome song to crank up the volume a little bit, called Beautiful One.